Let's dance in style, let's dance for a while. Heaven can wait, we're only watching the skies. Hoping for the best, but expecting the worst. Are you gonna drop the bomb or not? Let us die young or let us live forever. We don't have the power, but we never say never. Sitting in a sandpit, life is a short trip. The music's for the sad men. Forever young, I wanna be forever young. Do you really wanna live forever, forever and ever? Forever young, I wanna be forever young. Do you really wanna live forever, forever and ever? Hello. Welcome to Comic Book Herald Live, everybody. I'm Dave Busing, founder and editor-in-chief of comicbookherald.com. Today, March 21st, 2024, you're listening to CBH Live here on a beautiful sunny day. Too sunny? Is it too? Listen, we got to close some blinds on the holy guacamole. Y'all, a little view in the midsection there to spice things up. What's up? Today we're going to be talking about X-Men 97 reactions. We talking about the new X-Men comics that came out today, X-Men Forever, Resurrection of Magneto, and anything else that's good in comics. I read another good comic this week. Number 1, Dawnrunner by Ram V, one of my favorite writers in comics. We'll talk about that a little bit today as well. Getting your questions, getting your thoughts here on the live stream. To me, my heralds, getting some good questions, getting some thoughts. We'll address as much as we can. Thanks y'all for being here. Again, I'm Dave. You can find all my stuff at comicbookherald.com. And listen, I scheduled this. I thought we'd have to start late. I thought we'd have to start much later than usual because it is March Madness. March Madness is officially in full swing. But it looks like we have a nice break here. We should have the little break here where the Oregon Ducks are running away with it. Looked like the other game was a bit of a blowout. Next game start up in about an hour. That's about as long as I can go. That is like my endurance for live streaming, where I am just talking nonstop, is about an hour. That's about my endurance for most things. Interpret as you will. That is about my endurance for most things, is like 1 good hour. Even just like general attitude throughout a day, right? Like I get 1 hour a day now where I'm happy, I'm energized, I'm excited, I can pull it off. 1 hour a day. That's been true since I was about 15. That's not even an age thing. That's just a me thing, right? I get 1 good hour a day and I make the most of it. But we're here. We're going to talk X-Men 97 reactions. We're going to talk X-Men. We're going to talk your questions. And then we're just going to talk comics in general. Comics are so good. I love comics so much. Oh, my goodness. Don't even get me started on... That's a little Chris Collinsworth for you. Oh, man, I didn't bring him over here. All right, we're going to do it. We're going to do a live cutaway. Hang on. Look at what I'm reading right now. Look at what I'm reading. R.I.P. Akira Toriyama. I had never read any Dragon Ball before in my life. I went to the library and I saw Dragon Ball sitting on the shelves right after Akira Toriyama had passed. And I grabbed Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3 of Dragon Ball. I was super excited. I had a number of people just that week, before the passing even, had said to me, I had asked, like, what's some old school manga I should read? Like, what is some old school manga that I need to check out? And I grabbed the first 3 volumes, and they're all, like, a bunch of people were like, you should read Dragon Ball. It's super fun. They were like, not Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball, like where it really starts. And that's, people are always like, manga is so much simpler than comics. Manga is so much simpler than superhero comics. Meanwhile, you've got this needless Dragon Ball Z distinction. So, of course, I got confused and picked up Dragon Ball Z. I'm on Volume 4 right now. It's Goku versus Vegeta. Is that not how... I've never in my life... Is it Vegeta? I have no idea. I have zero idea. I have never watched Dragon Ball Z. I have never read Dragon Ball Z. It is my first time going through this. It is so fun. I love it. It is a blast. Akira Toriyama is a genius. I was astonished more than anything by the sheer number of designs, of character designs that I just knew. Like I said, like I'm an idiot when it comes to Dragon Ball Z. I don't know anything about this, okay? And nonetheless, I recognized like 10 characters. Talk about influence. Talk about design mastery. Okay, I recognize Piccolo instantly. I recognize Tenshinhan instantly. I reckon obviously Goku. A bunch of others. Vegeta, I'm seeing. Vegeta. Jordan here in the chat says it's pronounced Vagnito. Vagnito, very well done. Okay, yes, that's the volume I'm on right now. This is the Goku Vegeta. Throw it out. Y'all could convince me to say any word right now, and I would believe you. That's how little I know about Dragon Ball Z. That's some of what I've been reading. It's been so fun. I'm trying to keep up with this month's best comics. It's a busy month. It's a busy month, y'all, okay? There's going to be a lot of good stuff to talk about at the end of the month in terms of my favorites. Today's CBH Live is brought to you by V8 Juice. V8 Juice with a little bit of ice. V8 Juice with a little bit of ice and a splash of Hendrick's Gin. Oh, it's so healthy. It's so healthy. I can feel... Listen, I don't want to say I could step into March Madness right now. I don't want to say that because I'm 35. I have 3 kids, 3 boys. My knees hurt all the time. Like every day. Just constantly. I don't want to sit here and say and pretend that I could step in and score 6 points in March Madness at any given moment. I won't say that. But I probably could. Okay. Anyway, that is my drink of choice today. We got V8 a splish of Hendrick's Gin for March Madness feasting. The best sporting event of all time. Is it even close? Is anything more fun than March Madness? I don't think it's even close. There's nothing in comics. Is there anything in comics that rivals the spirit and the thrill of March Madness? Does anything come close to just like this is our moment. This is our thing. Here's 4 days of nonstop basketball, just purity. I don't think anything in comics captures that. Like Free Comic Book Day maybe is the closest thing. We need a March Madness of comics. I don't know what that would be. I don't know exactly what that would be. Okay. Uh-oh. Somebody's reading my socials. Manuel asks, Dave, why are you such a Debbie Downer about X-Men 97 in social media? Have I been? I've been pretty positive. People are so quick. Oh, man. Anything that challenges... for even like a second, a perception of just constant cheerleading. Debbie Downer, come on now. Come on now. I said, here's what I have said. Here's what I have published. I'm conflicted in my thoughts on X-Men 97. Let's be honest. I'm conflicted in my thoughts on X-Men 97. Here's what actually happened. Last night, I said to my kids, y'all want to watch X-Men with me? They said, hell nah. They said, no way. Is this a slanderous refutation of my own children? No, it's not. This series is not made for them. Also, like, they're a little too young for it. I asked people, I was like, what age are your kids that are into X-Men? More often than not, we were looking at 8+. I think the most responses were like teens watching with the parent, which like, hell yeah. Hell yeah. I remember when I was a teenager watching Justice League Unlimited with my dad when that was coming out, watching the weird Ultimate Universe adaptation of Marvel's Ultimates, like a movie with my dad. Like that experience, that shared experience of like, we have comics adjacent animation that we can share together was really formative. It was really important to me because my dad and I didn't have like a shared reading experience. He wasn't like giving me comic books to read. That wasn't my introduction to comics, but we did have animation. And yes, like I got like a huge part of my fandom just as a person was X-Men 9. It was the original 90s X-Men cartoon, right? That was my favorite cartoon as a kid. It was the one that in college when I got into comics and I was like, wait, I could go back and watch all of that. I was most excited to do for sure, right? So the 90s animation era is a huge part of why I'm here right now babbling about comics. Maybe the biggest part, frankly, in terms of like actual media consumed. Definitely. Okay, so now before all of you freak out at the prospect that I may be questioning X-Men 97, I watched the 2 episodes last night by myself without the kids. And I had a good time. I had a good time like a warm nostalgia bath. Okay? It was kind of what I needed. I was real stressed. I was bugged. I just wanted to sit on the couch and escape, and X-Men 97 delivered on that front. Absolutely. I think it is fairly solid as far as like continuations and slight upgrades of a thing that I enjoyed in the past go. What is weird to me about X-Men 97 is it's a cartoon about X-Men. Like it's an X-Men cartoon that is in zero way aimed at like new fans. That's what I find. And this is true of anyone. If you're between the ages of like 33 and 44 right now, you're going through the same thing where it's like, oh, like marketers and demographic data realized that our childhood is the profitable one now. I guess it's 35 to 44 is typically the demo that gets hit, right? And it's a weird thing to see yourself so deliberately reflected in media, in entertainment. And I resist that on an aesthetic level. I resist that on an artistic level, right? Like I don't enjoy the idea of art being created to market to old people. But the problem is I'm one of the old people who mostly enjoys that art. I had a really nice time watching X-Men 97. I simultaneously recognize that it is detrimental to actual creation, to actual artistic progression. You know what? It would have been just as easy to greenlight as a cartoon of X-Men 97, literally any other X-Men cartoon. Literally any other X-Men cartoon. You know what was good? Wolverine and the X-Men, circa the start of the 2010s. That was a nice cartoon, 2 seasons, should have gone longer, would have gone into Age of Apocalypse. X-Men Evolution. You got 2000s era kids who swear that's better than the 90s series. They're wrong. They're aggressively wrong. But that was their childhood. That's what they think. Okay? At least it was a different take. And I don't love that younger people, forget just kids. My kids are too young to know anything about anything. But like if you're like 11 and your X-Men exposure now is X-Men 92 or X-Men 97, that means that like your X-Men experience in animation is the one that is built for the 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds who it's actually addressed for. It's not your own thing. It's just someone else's nostalgia. And I don't love that. So like strategically, functionally, aesthetically, I'm kind of bothered by it. I'm gonna watch the hell out of every episode. Like, it's for me. It is. And that is the conflict. That is the conflict. So if you interpret that as Debbie Downer, whatever. I think it's useful. I'm performing no great feat here in being conflicted about the entertainment that I am enjoying. You know, it's not like I'm not going to watch at a protest. You know what I mean? And I really do think they're doing a nice job. We'll get into the specifics here in a second. Let's see, in live chat, some of you getting in questions, some of you getting in thoughts. You can super chat. Of course, to support this channel, you can also support over at patreon.com/Comic Book Herald. Getting your questions, getting your thoughts here live. I'll address as many of them as I can. Emmanuel asks, Dave, what are your thoughts on the Magneto miniseries by J.M. DeMatteis and Todd Knock? With J.M. DeMatteis being a friendo of the channel and all. J.M. DeMatteis is one of my best friends. Came on the Comic Book Herald channel to perform an interview with him. One of my closest pals in comics. I have not touched the Magneto miniseries. I don't plan to. J.M. DeMatteis is great. I bet he's doing a nice job with it. I'm not interested. I'm not interested in the nostalgia flashbacks. And that's like, I can say that in comics, but then the second they drop an X-Men 97, I'm like, I have to watch this day of. You tell me that's not hypocrisy? That's 100% hypocrisy. I know that. I recognize that. But yeah, I'm not reading their flashback minis. I'm not interested. Let's see. Chris Cueva says, I thought it was one season. Don't know what you're talking about, Chris. Let's move on. Cousin Marcus says, Hox Pox animated. This is an interesting one because a lot of folks are like, okay, so X-Men 97 launched. We got two episodes. It's doing the Trial of Magneto, which is Uncanny X-Men number 200. It is simultaneously doing a little Jean and Scott are having a baby. Maybe Jean's not who we think Jean is. And so it's doing some sort of like a little bit of Inferno, a little bit of Executioner song. Okay, that's all in there. That's all in the tapestry right now, which would put us about 1988 to about 1992 in X-Men chronology. And these are all storylines that the original series did not tackle at the time. The idea that it's going to jump to 2019's House of X and Powers of 10, to me, feels unfathomable, frankly. I think they're going to this is a methodical go through the canon kind of show. I'll be curious. I'm most curious at this point. Listen, I don't think they're ever doing House and Powers. I would be curious if they actually got to Morrison. I would be most curious because when they did the Secret Wars X-Men 92 spinoff, which was Chris Sims was involved in some way, longtime comic critic, comic writer, host of War Rocket Ajax podcast. They did Morrison stuff. They did Cassandra Nova in that. I'll be most curious if the actual animated published on Disney Plus series touches the Morrison run. If we get to even New X-Men, which is 2001, it's not that far of a reach. That would be interesting to me. I think if you want to see the House Powers X-Men animated version, read Steve Fox's, what was it? House of XXCII or whatever the Roman numeral equivalent of 92 is. Read it. It's good. I actually don't think you could animate it a heck of a lot better. But yeah, I don't see him going too far beyond that. Trap God Thanos here says, I'm just glad Storm and Cyclops are getting respect. Yeah, Storm and Cyclops, Storm, Cyclops, and Magneto had the best showing. Gambit had the best shirt, but they had the best showing of anyone in the first two episodes. It is cool. It is very cool to see when something large X-Men related drops and has a generally positive approval rating. It's cool as a reminder to see how many people love X-Men. You know, LeBron James tweeted about X-Men. Like the flipping king of basketball tweeted, which it's hilarious to me that LeBron is like, where can I watch X-Men 97? No one in his circle got the memo that it was on Disney. like he had to crowdsource that. Couldn't Google it, which is fine. He's LeBron. He's busy. He's icing his knees. He does not have time to Google stuff. But no one in his circle had the inside track on where to watch X-Men 97. Oh, that's so good. Listen, people are often like, what's your dream interview? And in the comic space, you'll have people like, oh, Stan Lee. And oh, I would talk to Jack Kirby if I could talk to anybody. I would interview LeBron James and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar about X-Men at the same time. I would 2 Chainz it at the same damn time. LeBron, Kareem, X-Men. If anyone knows how to make that happen, that's literally my dream. I would stop. There would not be any live streams after that. There would not be any podcasts. There would not be anything Comic Book Herald related. I would simply stop. I would say I did it. I reached the pinnacle. I got as far as I thought I could. I talked to LeBron and Kareem about X-Men. I think what would be awkward for them, for LeBron in particular, is I would be like, who is the Joakim Noah of X-Men? He'd be like, he'd play along like one time, right? He'd be like, I don't know, somebody annoying. Unus the Untouchable, right? And then I'd be like, who is the Derrick Rose of X-Men? And I would just keep doing bulls that he destroyed until he left, until he hung up on the stream. It'd be a great interview. It'd be so fun. That's what I want to do with my life, is interview LeBron and Kareem about X-Men at the same time. Nothing else can compare. Nothing compares. Nothing compares. Right? Know that one? Okay, what other questions do we got? Let's see. Pepto-Bismol points out life, death. Listen, it's coming. It's coming. Spoilers. Okay. That actually ties into... So here's the thing I actually tweeted. Maybe this was Debbie Downer of me. I don't think it was. X-Men, the animated series, draws heavily on X-Men comics. That is one of the things that fandom has often very much enjoyed about it. Hang on, I'm getting a very important message here. Cousin Marcus says that's future, not 2 Chainz. At the same damn time is not 2 Chainz. Is that what I'm hearing? This changes a lot for me. I just want comfort. I just want a second source on that information, because that's going to change a lot of my reference points in daily life. So if we could get a credible second source, if we could get the credible Hulk to come in and validate that, I would appreciate that. Thank you. Just says Professor X is the Derrick Rose of X-Men. Nope. Professor X has longevity. Derrick Rose does not. We need a flash in the pan greatness, baby. Not Professor X. Come on, do better. All right. Good try. I appreciate it. I appreciate you being here, Jess. Thank you. What was I talking about? I don't remember. Where were we? Who are you? What is this? Let's take a drink. Okay. X-Men 97 is referencing the history of X-Men comics. The animated series did this very successfully. It is 2024. Disney has owned Marvel for as long as I've been reading comics, more or less. Could they not reference and promote the comic books that are deriving their cartoon? How hard would it be to plug Life Death on Marvel Unlimited? How hard would it be in the credits at the end of the episode to say, Inferno available on Marvel Unlimited? It feels very doable. And I don't know how many people that would actually drive to read comics. I don't. But I know you can't test it until you try it. I know you can't test it and get a metric about Marvel Unlimited signups until you try it. Why do I care? because I like the idea of more people reading and enjoying comic books and seeing the full breadth of where these ideas came from. I don't get why they don't do that. Disney has like this weird disdain for comic books. They value Marvel so far as the licenses will make them money in live action movies. But when it comes to actually promoting the comics arm, they have no interest. As Nathan Payson, guide contributor on CBH, pointed out today to me, when James Gunn shares a DC book, which I don't know if I've said this here before, I need James Gunn to criticize like 3 DC books before I can take anything he says seriously. Okay? Listen, if you're going to like, every time James Gunn is like, yeah, Tom King, Bill Evilly, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, great comic. Fair. Grant Morrison, Frank Quitely, All-Star Superman, great comic. Fair. Boost the sales spike. James Gunn, every comic he says is one of his favorites. I just need Gunn to step in and say, Batman Cataclysm, I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy that era. You know what I'm saying? I need a little honesty to have any sense of credibility with your tastemaker power. But nonetheless, clearly, Gunn has tastemaker power. When he mentions a DC book, that DC book is one of the best-selling books in all of comics. Marvel has never tapped into that. Is it because they don't have a superstar director like James Gunn? Well, considering he just directed 3 Guardians of the Galaxy movies, I don't think that's it. Okay? It's because Disney has this weird disdain for the pulps they come from. Okay? It bugs me. It does. It bugs me. I would like to see the comics actually promoted. X-Men 97, it's cool to see so many people excited about X-Men being in media again. It sucks to recognize that Disney is making no effort to turn them into comic book readers. That bugs me. I saw a few people point out, like, they can just go to YouTube and watch, Comics Explain videos that'll connect all these dots for them. And, like, listen, I can't turn off the part of my brain that is like, I could make a video that is, here's all the comics references in X-Men 97. It shouldn't be up to the lonely amateur nerds to promote this stuff. It should not be up to the dorks to explain to people where these things came from. Disney, you own that. You sell those books too. Promote them. There's no reason not to. I don't get it. It's baffling. It's really weird. All right. Is it Debbie Downer behavior to focus on that? It's not even my focus. It's just like, why would they not also do that? Celebrate comic books. That's what I'm saying. Celebrate comic books. Chris Cueva says, Comics Explained is borderline unwatchable. Listen, I like Rob. Never met him personally. Not like a close relationship. But generally speaking, I have a favorable opinion of Rob. If anything, I'm just jealous that I didn't get there first. It's not a good thing to me for someone to consume their media via a YouTuber explaining it to them. I feel that way about any media. I think analysis and criticism can help augment an experience and thinking you've already had with the material. And that's what I try to do, right? Someone just telling you these are the things that happened is not a good way of experiencing that media. It takes out the emotion. It takes out your own critical faculties. I think it sucks as like a core way of experiencing something. Okay? That's not a knock on Rob. That's just my view on that particular enterprise. Okay? But I think he does a good job. I don't know. I don't want to watch it because I'm reading all the stuff. Right? But unwatchable, I feel like the metrics tend to disagree on that one. Okay. Where were we? So X-Men 97 thoughts. It's a very nostalgic watch. It picks up more or less where we left off. I thought Magneto came off great in this. I thought Storm was great. I thought Cyclops was finally great. I thought Morph was pretty cool. Actually, I wasn't expecting... Like, there were twice where I was like, wait, Lady Deathstrike's here? That's dope. And then you realize, like, oh, that's Morph. Apparently Morph now... Oh, the Blob moment? Okay. Gambit, some of the action's pretty great. Some of the action is super great. Gambit supercharging Wolverine's claws. Just riding on his back. Like he's not riding on the back of the littlest man we've ever seen. Can you imagine? Let's say Gambit is 5'9", average height. How tall do you think Gambit is? He's not taller than 5'9", right? He's a short guy. He's a little short king. But he's riding on top of 5'1" Wolverine. You know how close to the ground those two are? You know how low Wolverine has to be squatting? The quad strength. To pull that off? Come on. That's incredible. Incredible. Give Wolverine his props. That is a low leg lift. Okay? And he's charging Gambit's charging his claws. Then Wolverine is thrown forward into Morph, who transformed into Blob, which gave him the Blob belly to launch Wolverine up to destroy his Sentinel. Come on. That's awesome. That's just pure X-Men entertainment. If you're not enjoying that, you're not... Listen, you got to turn off your brain for some stuff. Okay? That's pretty good. Timothy here says Gambit is 5'11". Yeah, he's lying. He's absolutely lying. You got to measure him yourself. Okay? He's 5'9" at most. 6.5 inches. Check that data. That's all I'm saying. Rogue can tell you. All right. So... yes, it's a fun time. They're clearly doing a little Inferno build. They're clearly doing Executioner Song. They're clearly doing Storm Life Death. What else are we doing? Shouts to bringing in the Executioner, Friends of Humanity, as like our #1 villain. That was unexpected. As X-Pulls go. We're doing a little, New Mutants, Magneto Headmaster stuff. Trial of Magneto, obviously. I'm pretty here for them doing Inferno in any capacity. Okay, so here's a question. Spoilers, big spoilers. If you haven't watched this, you might want to mute for like a minute. At the end of episode number 2, is that Rachel Summers or is that Maddie Pryor confirmation? What do y'all think? I want to know. Michael says, imagine the smell of Wolverine and Gambit next to each other. So Wolverine, I think in my mind, is like, I have been raised to believe that Wolverine just smells like a wet dog all the time. Right? Like, just like the wettest dog. Gambit, I have been raised to believe, smells like someone who's been in the kitchen making beignets and using Cajun spice on everything, even his beignets. But also like a lot of cologne. Like a lot of cologne. I'm not a dog guy. Speaking of reasons you should leave. But I think I would prefer Wolverine individually to Gambit. The two of them together, ugh, that does sound rough. Chris says it's Maddie. Michael says Maddie. Warren, Maddie. Pepto-Bismol, Maddie. Jordan, original Gene. Maddie was the one who's giving birth. That's right, they had a baby. They had Nathan. Welcome to the X-Men animated series. Okay, so no one's thinking Rachel. No one's thinking Rachel here. We're all thinking this is a Gene Maddie scenario. Then we're definitely doing Inferno. I mean, either way. But yeah, we're doing Inferno. That'll be nice. That'll be fun. It'll be okay. You know? I would just be more excited for a new X-Men cartoon. I don't know. Like, dude, are there any of you out there who would like know I'm so glad they're renewing the 90s series as opposed to like them making a different X-Men cartoon? I mean, I'm not even like complaining about the math of it, right? I get that there's an audience for this. Obviously, you just look at the hype around it and it's like, listen, you can take X-Men times nostalgia times, just having a super like well built out history of story that you can pull from in ways you can continue to mine Chris Claremont's work without paying him. Right? But is there anybody who would like actually prefer the revitalized experience to something new? I think that's where I feel like maybe I'm going crazy. Where I'm like, if this was just like a new X-Men cartoon, I'd be way more into that. You know? That would actually be like a day one, I gotta watch this kind of thing. As opposed to like, I guess I should watch this. Everybody's watching it. Chris says, I originally wanted a new show, but now I'm pretty satisfied with getting 97. They did it. They definitely did a good job. Like, I do want to be very clear in that. That, like, I don't... There was no part of this watch experience where I was like, this was a mistake. It's more just the big picture stuff. You know what? What worries me about it is the idea of X-Men as eternal nostalgia. It's the idea of X-Men as like all the best stuff already happened. Because you see this with the comics a lot, and we're seeing it right now. As the Krakoa era ends, and we head towards this new From the Ashes experience, which is definitely going to be a lot more back to basics kind of, you know, coming back to it thing. House of X and Powers of 10 was a refutation of nostalgia. Grant Morrison's New X-Men was a refutation of nostalgia. These are the works that are newer and fresher and are celebrated for saying Claremont was then. Claremont and Byrne were then. What else could we do? You know? And I think what I'm worried about is X-Men 97 sort of cements an attitude and an X-Men fandom that is like, I don't care what else you could do. I just want it the way I like it and have always liked it. Make X-Men great again. And that bothers me. It does. I don't like that attitude. I think it is creatively bankrupt. And I think it's the fastest way to get me to check out on X-Men. Just says Claremont was a refutation of nostalgia too. Yeah, in a lot of ways, yeah. Right? That was a kick in the pants. That was a low expectations. Nobody's watching. This book is dead. We can do what we want. Like, that's when all the best Marvel stuff happens. All the best Marvel stuff happens when editorial and sort of the powers that be are like, whatever, do what you want. And somebody actually has an idea. And lo and behold, it's great when creative people actually get to be creative. All right. What do we got in the comments here? Timothy says, it's just an alternate reality. Enjoy it for what it is. Sure. Kevin says, I think I'd prefer something new as well. Michael, kids today should get their own version that can try and force their kids to watch in 2054. Okay, yeah. I think I'm pro that. Jordan says it's always cyclical, though. X-Men always takes one forward, 2 steps back. That's not a good thing. Like, I think you're right. But I don't think that's a truth that, as fans, we have to accept. You know? That sucks. We can say that sucks. It's okay to admit that we enjoyed the step forward and that actually getting pushed backwards 2 steps is not what we wanted. It's okay to be in that camp. That doesn't make you less of a fan. It just means you have taste. Oh, Mike Eagle says, got to start somewhere with the X-Men in the MCU, and I think this is a solid place to onboard while appeasing old fans. It definitely is. It definitely generated a lot of attention and a lot of interest. Like I said, LeBron James is tweeting about X-Men 97. Like, My barometer for success in life is, did LeBron tweet about it? And if he did, it was pretty successful. Listen, I get the calculus, definitely. Again, you get X-Men times nostalgia. If this is just a new series, is anyone talking about it that much more than Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, which is a way better new animation on Disney Plus? Obviously, way less attention because it's not tapping into a 30-year legacy. You know? It is very weird to me as well that this is like okay, they're here, we own them, they're in the MCU, right? They're in the Disney Marvel version, so we can remake stuff that used to be good or that people used to like. I get, in that regard, it would have been very hard to launch with a new animated series that was a new take, because then you'd have everybody wondering and kind of freaking out, is this the MCU version? If it's an actual new take, whereas this is so clearly not, that it kind of avoids all those questions. So I do get it in that regard. Emmanuel says, Dave, New X-Men is not entirely a refutation because he made Magneto revert to the Silver Age. I don't think we have time to get into that. but I disagree with the idea. Okay, should we talk about this week's comics? Chris says attention is good. Probably, maybe. I don't think attention that validates the worst impulses of fandom is abjectly a good thing, though. Like, if a fandom is like, yeah, I love X-Men, I loved it in 1994, and you validate them in the belief that that's when things were best, I don't think long-term that's a good thing for trying new ideas, for building new work. That's my take. Is it correct? Yeah, like most of mine. Let's get into a question. Here's the question. Who do you most want to see Peach Momoko adapt in Ultimate X-Men? What character do you think would be just flipping awesome in Peach Momoko's Ultimate X-Men? You get those thoughts in. I'm going to take a sip from our sponsor. That is some aggressively watered down V8. Michael says, attention is good. Some of the opinions are bad. Midnight Boys, LOL. What did the Midnight Boys have to say? I've listened to them in the past. I love their enthusiasm for nerd culture. It is hard for me to listen to podcasts or entertainment platforms where like the monetary standing is based on the success of the entertainment they're talking about. Because I mean, I've had this in the past, right? Like, as CBH becomes less and less successful, I am freer and freer to just say what I think. Like, and I think something like the Midnight Boys, where you're on basically the MCU track or the Star Wars track, you kind of have to be pulling for those things to be good, because otherwise you lose your audience for your podcast. Like, if you're a spin-off pod about a thing that is declining, now your pod is declining. You know what I mean? There's just this inherent, like, parasitic relationship that I think is a problem. But I am curious what they had to say. What did they have to say that was the bad opinion? Okay, we got some Ultimate X-Men by Peach thoughts here coming in. Rock Slide and Anole. I think Anole would rule. That's a great pick by Timothy. Banksy says dupe. Listen, that's always the key to my heart. Doesn't matter the question. JD, Nightcrawler. Yes. Alex, Boy. Now we're tapping into that Peach by way of Junji Ito vibe. Hell yeah. Give me some Peach Eye Boy. Jubilee. Okay, yeah, we'll see her. North Star. Why North Star? I don't understand. Banksy says Glob. That makes sense. Sleek Geek says Deathbird. Believed in themselves so much they said it twice. Good job believing in yourself. Have confidence in yourself. I appreciate that. Cousin Marcus, Apocalypse. Yes. We got multiple Emmas. I wonder why that is. Why do you want to see Peach as Emma? Curious about that. Quanon, yes, that makes sense. Michael says, sorry, Midnight Boys were okay. Joni had hot takes, lol. Okay. Chris asks, is Dave the Midnight Boys of X-Men? No, definitely not. 100% no. Promise you that. I love Peach Momoko's approach to Ultimate X-Men. I love how different it is. I love how fresh it is. I love how nonchalantly confrontational it is in terms of not using any of your favorite characters. That's such a move. That's such a move. Oh, I love it. All right, let's talk about this week's comics. Let's do it. Okay. Comics that came out this week. X-Men Forever #1, Resurrection of Magneto #3. That was it. Let's talk about X-Men Forever #1 first. So this is the miniseries written by Kieron Gillen. It was pitched as this is the book that is going to answer the outstanding questions from his Immortal X-Men run, and that it's going to answer lingering questions from the Krakoa era. Right? It is clearly a continuation of Immortal X-Men. There is no reason, logically, that you would call this X-Men Forever #1 instead of Immortal X-Men #19. Okay? So just keep that in mind, because that's important. We get confirmation. So pretty much this whole issue is Gillen going back and filling in the gaps. It's filling in the gaps of, in one case, something that was teased in Immortal X-Men #1, and then throughout most of it, it's the gap between when Immortal ended and when Rise of the Powers of 10 began. Big picture, it's too much of a look back for me. Some things I'm pretty happy to just roll with. And this definitely felt like a comic that was several months too late. It also felt like a comic that was grabbing my hand to pull me along when I was like, no, I'm fine, actually. I got all this. I don't know that much super additive was here. It's super solid. Gillen is my favorite in this era, tied with Al Ewing. But it didn't. I don't know that it built a lot that we hadn't already figured out from Rise of the Powers of 10. I mean, listen, shout at me in the comments here if you think no, this built out X, Y, and Z, and this is important because of blank. I didn't see that. We got confirmation that Destiny tells the mutant Sinister about Enigma in 1919. So in Immortal X-Men #1, there's that famous scene of "You're a ghost, fa la 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 la," and Destiny kills a mutant Sinister by whispering something in his ear. We knew that already. I mean, I guess we didn't have confirmation, but it was Destiny told him about the Dominion Sinister, and Dominion Sinister had something baked in. I guess we didn't know that Destiny had had a conversation with Dominion Sinister. Maybe that was kind of new. It's interesting. I bumped into somebody this week who knew about me. And it's a very weird experience for me. I get very uncomfortable. I prefer when it's just all of you who I'll never actually have to meet in person. It makes me very uncomfortable when I meet someone who is I know Comic Book Herald and I've watched you. I get sweaty. I get nervous. I want to run far, far away from that situation. But I bumped into somebody who was like, whatever. We got to talking, and they're like, oh, Comic Book Herald. Like, yeah, Kraken Krakoa. And I was like, at this point, I'm just flop sweating. Just fear. Deer in the headlights. So we're talking about X-Men a little bit. And the person is like, yeah, I checked out at Fall of X. I really did not enjoy Fall of X. And I feel like that experience, based on my case study of one, is probably more common than I realized, of folks who were like, I am here for Krakoa. I am not necessarily here for this convoluted and maybe rushed fall. You know? I think X-Men Forever, to me, we've talked about sort of the rushed nature of this ending and how Fall of the House of X feels like a book that is clearly produced under some awful conditions in terms of like timing and expectation and all that stuff. I think it's been a miracle to me that Kieron Gillen and R.B. Silva have made Rise of the Powers of 10 so good, considering, how everyone is clearly like forced into wrap this up by May, probably ahead of when they wanted to, and I think X-Men Forever, though, is the first time where you can see Gillen getting caught in that, where it's like, this book doesn't make any sense to come out right now. Rise of the Powers of X is 2 issues in. Dead X-Men is 2 issues in. This book takes place 100% before the first issue of Rise. You know what I mean? Like, this book doesn't make sense right here. If you're binging this and you're following the CBH reading order later, like, it's not going to matter. But when you're reading it in the moment, it's like, it doesn't fit here. This is just like, okay, if we're publishing issues and order be damned. This is why, historically, you can't just follow a Marvel chronological reading order by publication date, because it doesn't always make sense. It's like 90% of why CBH exists. Okay. So anyway, we see a lot more what went down between the end of Immortal and Rise of the Powers of 10. We get confirmation that real Doug is still trapped inside hibernating Krakoa. Charlie clones Sinister to get his genetic DNA out once and for all, which I guess maybe that hadn't been confirmed, that like Professor Charles Xavier, by allowing Sinister to clone himself in a Doug body, is able to remove Sinister from his own DNA, which does feel sort of meaningful. Jordan says Fall of X was extremely mixed. Gillen and Ewing were great throughout Fall of X. And then Dennis's Camp's Children of the Vault was pretty good. Otherwise, I mean, I would have said prior to this, probably Realm of X was the most mixed bag. I mean, I think Fall of X is unquestionably the worst of the 4 Krakoa eras. But yeah, I mean, this is just Immortal X-Men number 19. It's too much of a look back for me. It's too much of a flashback. Gillen's going to do way better work in the next issue of Rise of Powers of 10. I have no doubt about it. Again, all this was like, it was fine to read. It was just like, it doesn't make sense at this point in time. It doesn't make sense at this point in the journey. We're already past all of this stuff. So, Resurrection of Magneto number 3, on the other hand, Al Ewing is my guy. I love him. I'm a propaganda machine for him. This was a real good character study of Storm and Magneto. And nothing else. Sometimes that's fine. Depends on your mood. Al is just sinking deep into who is Storm, who is Magneto, and OBT dubs. The plot mechanic that is requested of us here is to bring Magneto back to the land of the living. Right? And that happens. I wasn't especially excited reading it, but there are moments that Al taps into of like Storm being like, am I meant to just be this perfect little diamond with no flaws and no complications. Like that to me is the type of meta commentary. Al doesn't get a reputation for being like controversial, right? Al doesn't get a reputation for being like Rob Liefeld, Todd McFarlane, a little bit of punk, like sticking it to the man. But he will write these things that are absolute condemnations of Marvel Comics as owned by the Walt Disney Company. Like reading that scene of Al writing Storm, like, am I meant to just be this perfect little trophy with no complications? Like in this moment of X-Men 97 nostalgia and in this moment of From the Ashes coming, where we know this thing is being restored, it's so perfect. It's so needed. He's really great at those moments. I mean, if you like the characters of Storm and Magneto, this issue was a thrill to see someone understand them so well. Like this is Al on his magic ass character study, like BS. It's quite good. Unquestionably, it's quite good. It is just sort of like plot wise, like endgame wise, it's like we know where this is going, right? But it's cool to see Al pull it off, nonetheless. It is cool. Oh, Mike Eagle says, I felt like it was rewarding me for having paid attention to things. That's what I enjoyed about it. Maybe talking about X-Men Forever there. Which definitely is, that's definitely what the comic is. I think. It's a bit of like, some of this has been a while. Let's catch you back up. Let's make sure you're looped in on this. If you've been paying attention, here's validation of that. The Destiny Mystique stuff to me is super interesting because you've got Destiny who knows about the Sinisters and knows about Enigma. And you've got Mystique who is like, I love you, I trust you, let's do this. And they have a wedding issue coming up. And I'm really like, I'm worried for them. I'm definitely emotionally invested in Mystique and Destiny's well-being, but I'm, because in this issue as well, I guess actually one thing that was new here is like, okay, so Mystique's on Krakoa now, and she went to Destiny's room, and she's reading Destiny's new diaries, and she's seeing this truth for the first time. So that when they communicate via Mother Righteous back to Professor X, back to Krakoa, you get a lot of Mother Righteous here, by the way. Back to Krakoa, Mystique's like, I don't want to talk to Destiny right now. Like, they're not in a good place as far as trust, as far as the relationship. That stuff's interesting. Definitely credit there. Definitely credit there. I'll tell you what. This era is going to end with a bang with Rise. I'm very interested in seeing how Al's going to finish Resurrection of Magneto #4. Because, I mean, Magneto's back. The #3 ends with Magneto back. It's like mission accomplished. So what is issue 4? Curious what that could even be. I do want to see those things. I want to see these creators who have written such good X-Men comics over the last year or two finish strong. And I think they're very capable. Very capable. All right. Getting your questions. Getting your thoughts. My only other note here is to point out once again, I've started reading Dragon Ball Z. That's the only other thing I had written down. All right. Do it. Get your questions. JD in the super chat here says, thank you, JD. Duggan has been a supervillain for me in the desecration of Hickman's architecture. So Gillen and Ewing stuff was a true gift. By the way, what happened to Storm's claustrophobia? Gillen and Ewing stuff was definitely a true gift. I 100% agree with that. I think they saved this X-Men era. I think they made the Krakoa era matter all the way through the end. And I think there were some really great X-Men comics. I do fully expect that when an accounting of this era is done, that Duggan's Fall of the House of X will be bailed out by editorial malfeasance and corporate interjection. I've been critical of Duggan's X-Men, but mostly coming from a place of I don't think he should be the 1A writing X-Men superstar on the line, but I think he'd make a great 4th or 5th man in a roster. You know? So, like, I think Fall of the House of X, it to me is not reflective of what Duggan is capable of. He's definitely more competent and just solid all around than these very bad event issues. So, like, I can't get on board with the supervillain vibe. I don't think we have here a creator who's, like, actively destroying things, right? That sort of early 2000s feel for Chuck Austin that so many X-Men fans had. Even in criticism, I can't get on board with that. Because I'm certain, unless like 3 months from now, there's like an election style, audio leak of Duggan in a private conversation being like, I'm going to destroy X-Men. I hate them. I'm going to write the worst X-Men event ever. Like, it's not going to happen. Jordan says Duggan can't dunk. That's actually a shockingly good way to describe the Jerry Duggan experience. If he's open, he can lay it in. Right? Get in the ball in transition. Maybe hits a floater over a bigger guy. But if you need him to dunk in traffic over 2 people, it's not happening. It's absolutely not happening. Al Ewing is dislocating his finger because he's dunking so hard, a la Anthony Edwards. Kieron Gillen is on posters because he's dunking like Jalen Green. Even Dennis Camp, he's getting up like Zion on the alley-oop. I don't think Duggan can dunk. And like, that's not his game. It didn't need to be. It did not need to be. JD says his Marauders initially was good. It was. It definitely was. Just like listen, there's a lot of Jordan Poole in Jerry Duggan's game. Champion off the bench. Huge contract. Key ingredient in the Golden State Warriors ecosystem. As the guy on the Washington Wizards, a disaster, a train wreck, worst contract in the league. That's harsh. That's mean. I actually feel bad about that. But there might be some truth there. Voss says he's the Robert Horry of X-Men. I've thought about that before. Robert Horry, like Robert Horry is so clutch. Like, that's his whole thing. Is like he hit the big shot pop, right? Hit the big shots in the big moments. I think Duggan actually had that with Planet Size and with like the big Hellfire Gala moments, and Fall of the House of X completely throws it out the window. It'd be like if Robert Horry missed 10 threes in a game 6. That's Fall of the House of X. JD follows, what do you think about Storm's claustrophobia? Do you think it was referenced in the part about her being frozen? It doesn't feel like her claustrophobia has been dealt with or referenced in any significant manner in a while. I don't think Ewing's been especially interested in that. I don't know, maybe that's been handled elsewhere in continuity and I'm just blanking on it. I don't know, she kind of seems like she's in this era where it's just like not a thing for her. Am I wrong? Like, it seems like she's just, I don't know that like she got over it so much as it just like it hasn't come up in super meaningful ways. It always seemed like a weird way. Like, if somebody's only weakness is tight spaces, is like intensely tight spaces, that's kind of a hard weakness to exploit. And I feel like Al's vision for Storm is more just like, let's celebrate why she's so incredible, as opposed to leaning one again and again on this one fear she has. But I don't know the answer beyond that. Like, is there actually a incontinuity thing? All right. Get your final questions. Get your final thoughts. Let's finish this. And listen, March Madness is probably kicking off again, but I think we got to go. Let's see. What's coming next week? It's coming down the pipe. Going to League of Comic Geeks. Looking at March 27, we got Ultimate Spider-Man #3. There's something we got to talk about. Marco Cicchetto already off on issue 4. Shouts to that's on how many Hickman Cicchetto issues we got in a row. The answer was 3. Don't think anyone had that low of a number. Cannot say I'm super shocked. What else do we got? X-Force 50. Okay. Wolverine 46. Okay. Rise of the Powers of 10, #3. All right, we got Rise of the Powers of 10 and Ultimate Spider-Man #3. All right, we'll be here next week. Okay. I don't see any new issues or new questions that I need to address. Listen, good luck to you and your brackets this week. Good luck to you and your X-Men fandom. Good luck to all of us with X-Men 97 next week. I'm definitely going to be watching on a week-to-week basis. I'm definitely curious at that level. Yeah, I said my piece. All right. Thanks to all you for being here. Really appreciate it. We'll be back next week. Same time, probably same day, probably same channel. Thanks, everybody, for listening. JD says, loved your Dune video. Thank you. The Dune video is the latest up on the Comic Book Herald channel. It's how House of X and Powers 10 was influenced by Dune. It's a good one. I think it's a pretty good one. Check it out if you haven't already. That's on the CBH channel. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Voss says, I'm watching X-Men 97. What was your favorite part? My single favorite part, is definitely Gambit powering up Wolverine's claws and then launching off of Morph, who had transformed into Blob. No question about it. That was the fave. Thanks for listening. See you next week. Enjoy the comics.